So imagine this scenario. You're a younger kid, you're at your grandparents' house, and you're outside playing with your neighborhood friends. Well, later in the afternoon, your grandmother calls you in to have a snack, so you go to walk through the back kitchen door and the aroma hits you right in the face. It's freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. What could be better? In this speech, I plan to talk about how to effectively measure, mix, and bake a good batch of chocolate chip cookies, which in my opinion is something that everyone should know. So the very first step in starting this project of baking chocolate chip cookies is to make sure that you have the ingredients, which can be seen here on the table. You want to make sure you have all the ingredients before you begin, because if you get halfway through mixing everything and discover that you don't have any eggs, that means you have to run out to the supermarket, which will just delay your project a bit longer. So my suggestion is just make sure that you have everything you need before you start. Before you start mixing anything, I would suggest that you preheat the oven to 375 degrees. That way, while you get into mixing and putting your cookie batter together, your oven is preheating and getting ready to take the cookies in once they're ready to bake. Now, according to the Very Best Baking website, the preparation time for putting all this mix together before it goes into the oven is about 15 minutes. So what you'll do after you've preheated and gotten all your ingredients is you'll start getting out all the tools you'll need, all of the utensils. This is going to include measuring cups, measuring spoons, mixing bowls, cookie sheet, spatula, oven mitts, cooling racks, things of that nature. Everything you need to complete this project. So once you have that, you'll want to get started with the measuring. Normally what I do is I measure the dry ingredients, the flour, the sugar, the baking soda, and the salt, and I put those in a small mixing bowl to start off with. What I'll do now is just demonstrate for you how to effectively measure some flour here so that you know how to do this when you go to bake your next batch of chocolate chip cookies. I use a dry measuring cup, which you'll notice here, and you'll see that there's a little bit of excess. So what I do is I take the back side of a butter knife and I just smooth it out so that it's all very level. And you'll want to do this when you're making these cookies. That way you've got consistent and accurate measurements so that you'll have the best result. So that's how you would measure some flour. And again, you would just add the remainder of the dry ingredients, the sugar, the baking soda, and the salt, and put that in a smaller bowl. Next, what you'll do is you'll cream together the brown sugar and the butter and the vanilla. And once you've got that in kind of a creamy consistency, you'll start adding in the eggs. You do that one at a time. So beat in the eggs one at a time until everything looks smooth. And once that's all done, you'll slowly start adding in your dry mix with your flour and everything else. So once that comes to a good consistency and doesn't look lumpy anymore, you'll add in your chocolate chips. Now, at this point, you can also add in nuts if you like. I personally don't enjoy nuts in my cookies, so I prefer just the chocolate chips, which you can see here. So once everything is mixed into a consistent batter, it should look something like this. So once you've got this, the next thing you'll want to do is spoon your cookies about this big in a teaspoon onto your cookie sheet. The cookie sheet does not need to be greased, and you just spoon it on there, and usually a cookie sheet of this size here will hold about 12 cookies. Okay? Once they're all put on there, you'll put them in the oven for about 9 minutes. If you like your cookies a little bit crispier, I would suggest 10 or 11 minutes. Personally, I like mine softer, so I usually go for about 9 minutes or so. So once the cookies are done baking in the oven, you'll pull them out. I would say let them cool for about 2 minutes on the pan, and then once they're done cooling on the pan, you'll put them on some wax paper. I prefer to use wax paper. You can also use a cooling rack if you'd like. That way they don't stick to the pan or stick to your countertops or anything like that. And then once you're all done with that, your cookies are good to go and they're ready to be stored. One tip that I have if you enjoy softer cookies is I put in the bowl or the jar that I keep my cookies in, I put one piece of bread. Doesn't matter if it's wheat or white bread, but I put one slice of bread in there and it keeps the cookies just as soft as when they came out of the oven. So at this point, I've demonstrated how to measure, mix, and bake cookies. And what I wanted to talk about next here is just kind of to touch on a preference. Personally, I don't have a lot of time, so baking cookies from scratch like this usually doesn't work into my time schedule. But I also wanted to evaluate cost. So what I found was this right here is a pre-mixed cookie dough. And this goes for about $7.50 at Sam's Club, and it says you get about 80 cookies out of it. So I found that this mixture usually yields about, I would say about 80 cookies if they're on the smaller side, and that comes out to about 9 cents a cookie. Now if you do it this way and buy all the ingredients and mix everything yourself, I've actually found, I did some research online, and this mixture here costs about 18 cents per cookie. So it's certainly your preference. A lot of times I like to go with this just because it's time and cost effective. But that's the two options that you have. So today I've talked about how to measure, mix, and bake a good batch of chocolate chip cookies, and now I'd like to show you the finished product. Here they are. Go ahead and try one.